Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Nut House, where we share a little glimpse into our life here in Georgia. We live a simple life. We thank the Lord for all His blessings, and we thank Him for you. So, I want to let you in on a little secret. I have always had trouble with pie crust. I would always try a recipe and then I would roll it out and then it would end up failing. But I have found the one, and this is the one you'll want to use if you have trouble with it like me. We're going to start by making a butter crust. We're going to use 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour. And then I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of baking powder. And then, because this is the butter pie crust recipe and I'm using salted butter, I'm going to use 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Now, if you had unsalted butter, you'll want to add the full teaspoon. So I'm going to get that mixed together. Now you can use a pastry cutter, you can use a fork. I'm just using this blending fork. You could even probably use 2 knives. And also you could use a food processor. It might make it even quicker. But I'm going to use the grater here, and I'm going to dip my butter into the flour several times while I'm grating it. And I'm just going to keep doing this over and over until I get it all grated in. Now, if you have a food processor, you could do, put it in the little chute and let it blend in for you. But I find that this works really well because it's gentle on the flour and the butter and doesn't make a really tough crust, because you're supposed to be gentle with pie crust and biscuits, but I'm rarely gentle with anything, so this turns out every time for me. And I have to say, if you're in the market for a really good grater, this is the one. I'll try to remember to link it down below, but I've tried so many graters and they don't hold a candle to this one. It is so easy to grate anything with. Now, before I add my liquid, I'm just going to coat each little grating of butter in this flour. It's no big deal if you don't get it all in, but I just want to toss it around a little bit, and then I'm going to start by adding cold whole milk. Now, I'm going to start and add a tablespoon at a time, and I will say that the butter pie crust recipe uses a little bit more of the whole milk than the lard one does, but I'm going to start with about 5 tablespoons, and then I'm going to look at it. My goal is that I want it to come together when I scrunch it with my hands. I don't want bits of dry parts everywhere, and also I don't want it too wet, because if I get it too wet, it's going to stick all over everything, and if I get it too dry, it's going to crack and not stick together. So I'm just going to keep on until I can scrunch it together and make one mass. So you see how I tried to get it to come together and it wouldn't. It's still very dry, so we're going to add another tablespoon or so. I'm just going to keep on. It's also going to depend on where you live and the humidity and all of that. So we're just going to keep on and try to get it to come together with the least amount of milk possible. And you see, I'm just trying to get it together. Now, this is the butter one, so I'm making really I'm making sure that I get as much of it as I can, because butter is so expensive right now. I want every last bit of it. So I'm going to keep on trying to get it to come together, and all these bits, try to get it into the dough as well. So once your dough comes together, you're going to put it in like some plastic wrap or a Ziploc bag, and we're going to put it in the refrigerator for around an hour. That way it rests a little bit, and then it's easier to roll out. I'm going to kind of make, I'm going to flatten it, and I'm going to make it into a little bit of a square so that it'll be easier to roll out as well. So now we're going to start on our lard pie crust. Now I wanted to mention that each recipe of dough makes 2 pie crusts. I'm going to go ahead and make this lard one just to show you how, and then it's never a bad idea to have some pie crust in the refrigerator or even freezer. That way you can pop out a quick chicken pot pie or roast beef pot pie, or you know, if you have a guest come over, you can make a quick pie. This is the same recipe. I'm going to use 1.5 cups of flour, then 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of salt because my lard is not salted, and 1/2 cup of lard. And we're just going to blend this up with the blending fork. You can use your hand. You can use a pastry cutter or a fork, and then we'll start to slowly add our milk. And like I said, I believe I said that this pie crust doesn't use as much milk as the butter one. So I forgot to mention, today we're making homemade Pop Tarts with this dough, and it really ends up being more like one of those toaster strudels. But the ingredients are better because most of the things in here are from scratch, and the only sugar that's in it is from the jam or the filling, and you can choose whatever jam you like. So we're just going to do the same thing on this dough. Keep trying to get it to combine, and then get that dough in the fridge as well. This is also a good recipe to have on hand for the holidays. You could go ahead and make your pies at the beginning of November and freeze them. I'm planning on doing that as well, making some pies with this recipe, because normally I'm fighting with the pie crust, but like I said, this recipe is my favorite. Okay, now when rolling out this dough, we want to make sure that we keep our surface floured, because if it sticks, then, you know, we'll get cracks and all of that. So we're just going to liberally coat the surface that we're working on. We're going to add a little bit of flour to the top, and we're just going to gently roll from the center outward. And you want to make sure that your dough is movable. A lot of times I'll just flip it over, make sure that I can move it, because if it gets stuck, then it's going to rip. So we want to make sure, and if it does rip, you can mend it back together. That's no bad, you know, no big deal, I should say. So we're going to roll it as thin as, I don't know how thin this is as far as measurements, but it's not paper thin, but it's not thick either. You can make it however you like it. If you want a really big chunk of dough, make it make it thick. Now the first time I made this, I folded the dough onto itself, and then I tried to get the little Pop Tarts the same size, but it was a mess. So I picked up this little rectangle, I think it's like 4 inches by 2.5 inches from Walmart. It was only $1.48, so I think it was well worth that to, you know, make them at least a little bit similar shape, because mine were not at all the same size. So anyway, we're going to cut these out and get them on a parchment lined baking sheet, and then we're going to fill them up. Now we're going to use about a tablespoon or a teaspoon, however much you like. I know that the first time I made it, I didn't add enough, and I couldn't really taste it. I used my peach Melba jam in the first one. Those were really good, except for I should have added more jam. But this time I had some blueberry, I think it was blueberry preserves, because there were whole blueberries in there. And I put about a tablespoon, I would say. And then some of it oozed out, but not a whole lot. And they were really tasty as well. So use whatever you like. Your favorite jam or jelly. Strawberry would be delicious. So I'm going to keep, because I don't want to waste any of this dough, I'm just going to keep rolling it out, adding more flour, rolling it out, cutting as much as I can. And at the end, I had a little piece of it left, so I covered it in cinnamon sugar, and one of my boys got to enjoy that. So like I said, you can add whatever jam that you prefer, and this is some of my homemade blueberry. We're going to go ahead and use a fork to close up the edges of the Pop-Tart, and then I'm going to get them on that sheet again. We're going to continue to do this until we're all done. Now here I'm trying to roll this out and see if I like it better, and then I kind of nixed that idea and said, let's just do it the size of the original cookie cutter, because we don't really want a humongous Pop-Tart. Just a small one is what we prefer. Do you have a favorite flavor Pop-Tart? I know when we used to buy them, we don't buy them anymore because it's just pure sugar. But when we used to buy them, strawberry and blueberry were my favorite. Put it in the microwave for like 30 seconds with a glass of milk. That was sugar overload. Some of my children used to like the chocolate ones. And that's another thing, if you wanted to make chocolate Pop-Tarts, it would almost be like a chocolate hand pie, and that sounds really good too. So you can add whatever flavor you like into this. I think the next ones I'll probably try strawberry. So we're going to stick these Pop Tarts in the refrigerator and let them rest for about 30 to 40 minutes, and go ahead and preheat our oven to 350 degrees. And when we're ready, we're going to do an egg wash, which is just an egg with a little bit of water added to it, and we're going to whisk that up and brush it on top of these Pop Tarts. This is just going to give us a golden brown color and make them prettier. Now, some of this filling oozes out, and it may not be the prettiest thing, but boy, it's delicious. 94 through 98. And here they are coming out of the oven. We're going to go ahead and make an icing for these. Like I said, you don't have to put an icing on it. They're plenty sweet. But I just wanted to show you one that you could use if you wanted to. So it's about a cup, I would say, of powdered sugar. And then I added in a little bit of vanilla. Also, if you want the glaze to kind of stick and harden on top of the Pop-Tart, you're going to add about 1 tablespoon of corn syrup. Again, that's optional. You don't have to do that. You can just, it can run off. It's no big deal. Or you can just leave it off completely. But we're going to add some milk to thin it out, and then spoon it over our Pop-Tarts. So I was thinking an easier way might be to dip the tops of these Pop-Tarts in the bowl and then let the filling run off. I'm not sure if it would crack and flake because these are really flaky, and you know, I wouldn't want them to break apart, but that might be easier. You might want to try it, and if you do try it, let me know which one you know, worked out best for you. And here they are finished, and the icing hardened on there nicely. Thank you all for watching. I hope you'll stick around, and we'll see you on the next video.